The sun and the belly button. Okay, so there's the sun, and there's two stars we made up just in the same degree. Only in this case, the northern star, or on the other side of the orbit of the ecliptic, the northern star has already risen, and the star with the southern latitude would not have risen above the horizon yet. So you can't just say if it's north, it's going to be it'll be more in the 12th house or the first. You have to see which side of the zodiac you're on. And watch this. So this is from, so you're talking fall and winter. Well, the fall, 1 second, let me just go back this way. I have these drawings. Yeah, so the fall and the winter, the north can be in the 12th house and the south can be rising first. But if we go back to the ones before that, the Virgo, no, it's still happening. Okay. I was this way. This goes the other way. Yes. Yeah, so it's, I really just, I don't have it right in my head. I should have. But this reversal is there, and this north or south you have to look at. We'll come at this a few different ways. Words don't, I mean, how do you get a word to explain this? It's not a word, it's a phenomenon, it's a picture, it's got texture, it's got depth, it's got stars, planets, beings moving, and where they're coming up to our attention into the horizon, or not yet. These are relevant factors experientially, but you know, to astronomers, how could this have any personal relevance to anybody? Well, the light's becoming more, something's becoming more visible. Nothing changes in the universe that doesn't affect us. E equals mc squared, everything changes. So we're just looking a little bit more detailed at these changes to see a little idiosyncrasy around the degrees in the houses and the degrees of the ecliptic. Astrologers are using the ecliptic to measure the degrees. Astronomers use the equator, and it's called right ascension. They use the equator and measure them by the right ascension, and nothing ever seems to be exactly the same. You know, and you even get to places where you would have, like, if you're looking from the equator, Ophiuchus is a constellation that's really predominant on the equator, but it doesn't touch it's not really there on the ecliptic. So these, like, there's all kinds of myths and stories as you go into the stars that help to explain these little distinctions or little observations. And for a few people they could listen or hear, but a lot of the teachings have been put up like this. So here we're taking Aries. And in Aries, here the north, if it was north, it's going into the first, it's going to rise first. If it's south, it's going to rise after it. This is the constellation Aries. So technically, this would be it's not in the technically it would be here near the constellation of Fish. It would be in Pisces. Yeah, so we have it shifted over now. I see. I'm not thinking straight today. Excuse me a second. Get one of the maps. Okay, I don't know if you see it, but I'm gonna, in this map, let's just see if you're seeing it. Here. Okay, this is just a globe, and it shows the red is the equator, the blue on this tape, the blue tape on this is the ecliptic. So we're going to look at the Aries here. Yeah, so the Okay, I got it. Yeah, so the Aries is, this is just the sun here being in Aries with 2 stars. This would actually be in the sign of the zodiac of Taurus, because the constellations to the signs are named the same, but one is measuring the seasons, the other is measuring the star shapes, and they give them the same names. So I tend to try and use these constellations as the ram or the bull, or instead of using Aries and Taurus, because then it keeps it distinct a little bit. Sorry for the lapse there, but here you have it when it's going through the springtime. The north, a planet being north of the sun would be pushed into the 12th house. The south would still be in the first. The first is before it's risen. So that's the line of rising, the rising sign. Boom, that's there. And it's just closer. We added 2 other stars to show how, according to the right ascension, it was just a straight line going across, measuring the houses based on the equator. These 3 stars could be all aligned, but the ones that are conjunct the sun and the ecliptic will not be on the. There's 2 different alignments in different sections of space. So you see here again. So there's slight difference. It's nothing's equal. Everything changes, everything moves, everything warps. So the very concept of equal houses, it might work exactly at the equator, but it wouldn't work north or south of it. So okay, again, we took one in the constellation of the fish. So I just made a star there, put the extra star above it. So here's the degree of the ecliptic, and if we measure it along, here's the place where it would touch the equator. Okay, so there's a star, there's the sun, and here's the point where it touches the equator, but this is the point where that degree of the ecliptic would be if you follow the equator, the ecliptic down to touch the equator. So here on the first one, yeah, what's different on this one? It's just seemingly showing the same thing. The stars north, just above in the equator. Oh, it's not just these 2 slides were out of alignment. It should have been this one first, and then this one after. But here we go. So here we have this star. We'll just draw this line. So the degree of the zodiac we've drawn right through here. So, but if we were measuring the houses or crossed over, that might be saying there's one house, and these are really just short of just 3 of them. Maybe the house coming across there, but that's one house. We're going into the next house, and we'll be measuring up and down. So if that's right on the ascendant, that star being north will already be risen in the 12th house. But there's also this point where it touches. So there's the ascendant, but when the Earth turns this little bit more and touches this point, it's not going to look like, it looks like it's past the conjunction in the zodiac. But if you were looking by right ascension or by the houses, it's still going to be, there's another conjunction behind that conjunction. There's two conjunctions. There's 2 from each cycle. There's the different time. These 2 timings have an effect. So in progressions, we normally just are watching them going along the ecliptic. But there's another sequence of events that are tied to each other that's going along as you go along the equator. And these 2 events are not at the same time, but they relate to 2 different events in our lives. They tie 2 things together, or make a complex build up to 2 crises instead of 1 around a situation. So this is a drawing that shows it better. Here's the red line is showing the star going through the sun down where it touches the equator. The blue line is taking this drawing straight up from the equator up to the star. In this case, it's showing where the star would be. The sun is right on the horizon, but that star is already risen. It's north of the equator. It will be sticking out on the other side. So these are, so you have the point on the ecliptic. There's 2 points. If you're looking on the equator, there's 2 points where that phenomena happens. There's 2 points of conjunction, one by ecliptic one by equator. Yeah, it does make this whole double system. It's almost like a schizoid, a double system to every transit, everything, but they're close enough that the transit will still work. Where, especially the bigger outer ones, when they're sitting there, you don't look, you give it a degree orb and you more or less have covered this. Okay, so they'll be there. So, but if you're narrowing it down when you get to progressions, you're looking at much smaller time periods, much longer time periods, and much greater detail. These stand out more dramatically. So, okay, now on this one, we have the two lines touching the equator, from the equator north and from the ecliptic, going north and south. We've added, here's a planet. Here would be like a transiting planet moving across here. So if a transit's moving across there, that transit will be at a point where in the degree of the zodiac, it conjuncts the sun and the star. And it'll keep going and there'll be a point where it conjuncts the star there, and it'll go another bit further and it'll conjunct the sun. So there'll be, there's one point where it conjuncts in the ecliptic, but there's really two other points that's still involved with this timing, with this event. Yeah, so here it's showing if that one got up to, was up, if this planet moved up, and there's the point where it would be conjunct the star and the sun. Okay. And as it conjuncts that star, we're seeing it's conjuncting that star there, but it's way a few degrees away from the ascendant. If you're looking from the equator, it's already risen. Then it's going to keep going on. Who goes to the next one? I think that's in the next drawing. It'll conjunct by rising. It'll touch the next it'll touch this star by houses. So here's the touching of the star. The dot is where the touching is the star. The conjunction by ecliptic. On the next one, let's move a bit further, and you'll see the conjunction to where the blue dot is to the star by the houses. So in the transits, as the planet's moving along, it's going to have 2 points of maximum influence to that one point. And really, if you include the sun, there'll be 3 points there. Technically 4, but yeah. So this just I've added the dot to the ascendant, so you can see the 1, 2, 3. Okay, so you get these 1, 2, 3. If you're measuring along the ecliptic, you'll get the 1, 2, 3 direct. But there's also the point where, see, this point where it conjuncts the ascendant, we've already seen it by the degree, so it's coming after. It's later. These are really, we're watching points on the equator. From the equator, we're watching it on an angle, but the planet passes by that, so it's not easily determined. Well, it is mathematically, but we don't see it from a chart that quickly. You would see it if you had the right ascension or the equatorial, and you had the two charts. They would stand out, and you would see these different timings.